To give us a perspective on the situation in Indonesia, joining us now live via Zoom is OCTA Research Fellow Guido David. Professor, good morning.
Yes, hi, good morning, Ria.
Professor, can you explain to us how cases in Indonesia ballooned by this much? I mean, there's sort of a cautionary tale at this point. What's going on there is something we don't want to happen here in the Philippines as much as possible.
Right, Ria. Well, what happened was, of course, there was a surge in cases, and it's mostly due to the entry of the new variant, the Delta variant, in Indonesia. And it actually, a similar scenario happened in the Philippines back in February when a new variant, that time the Alpha and the Beta variants, entered the country, entered into community transmission in the NCR, and that's why the cases ballooned at that time in the NCR. So it's mostly the entry of the Delta variant coupled with easing of restrictions, as was mentioned. There was like a holiday, so those are the components that are required to have a surge.
Right, so the Philippines and Indonesia are leading Southeast Asia in the number of cases. But how would you compare our numbers with Indonesia's before they were hit by this Delta variant? Were we very similar to Indonesia before the surge they're experiencing now?
Right. Actually, before they were hit by the Delta variant, they had a daily attack rate nationally of about, it was around 2, actually. It is a very good, a very low daily attack rate. And I understand that they were quite confident, and possibly that caused complacency. And back in February, before we were hit by the Alpha and the Beta variants, we were also having a daily attack rate in the entire country of around 2 per 100,000. So we had a similar trend. Of course, now we don't have a daily attack rate of 2. It's a little higher. It's around 5 to 6 because of some recent surges in the Visayas and Mindanao region. Although in NCR, our situation is actually controlled. So you could say that the situations were similar, but now their daily attack rate has increased to about 12. And this is actually the same attack rate that we saw in the Philippines back in March when we had the surge. So what they're seeing now is what we saw back in March. And in terms of vaccination, we also have similar levels. They have a slightly higher vaccination level. They've vaccinated about 12% of their entire population. I think we've vaccinated about 10% of the entire population. So it's very, very similar.
Right, so it seems that the Delta variant is sort of the game changer here.
Oh, yes, definitely. It's the game changer. And if the Delta variant enters into community transmission in the Philippines, what we expect to happen, especially now that, restrictions have eased up, that means we're not going to be able to defend as well against this Delta variant when it hits us because of our loosened restrictions. We're not saying we should tighten restrictions because the Delta variant is not here. What we're just saying is if the Delta variant enters right now and with our level of restrictions, we're going to have a surge that is at least comparable or maybe much worse than what we saw last March. And we also saw a surge happening that happened in India, and it was very severe, and everybody knew about that. So what Indonesia is seeing right now, it's not even yet at the level of what happened in India, but it could get worse if they don't control things very quickly.
Well, speaking of restrictions, the government has tightened border controls. There is a travel ban from Indonesia. So far, the travel bans from the other countries seem to be working. Is there anything else the government should be doing to prevent the Delta variant from getting here?
Well, right now, the government's doing a great job of keeping the Delta variant out of the country. Of course, we don't know for sure if the Delta variant has entered, but we're not seeing it yet in the biosurveillance. We're not seeing it yet in the number of cases, even in the other provinces. I mean, there's a small chance that it's there, but we're not seeing it right now yet. So the government has done a great job because we're one of the few Asian countries that have not been hit by the Delta variant. I mean, Mongolia has been hit by the Delta variant, and they're having a really bad surge. I mean, relative to Indonesia, it's actually much worse. And they've vaccinated more than 50% of their population. Thailand and Vietnam are also being hit by the Delta variant. So right now, we have to keep the Delta variant out of here while we still haven't vaccinated or while we still haven't reached population protection, which requires about 40 to 50% vaccination, at least, for example, in the NCR and priority areas.
All right, thank you so much for that, Dr. Research Fellow Guido David.